shield wall!
What's going on, guys? Back for our second podcast. We made it to podcast number 2. I'm here with Peter Fuda. My name's Antonino Fazio. Pete's my co-host, and today we're going to be talking about nutrition and supplements. So first, Pete, I think we should get into maybe what we were doing before and what we're doing now and how much better we feel now. What do you think?
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that because especially me because I'm more newer of the switch over to the whole foods diet. So whereas you have been on it for longer than I have, but
What were you
yeah,
doing before, Pete?
eating whatever I wanted. That's what I was doing before.
You were on the seafood diet.
Yeah, I was on the seafood diet. Everything I see, I eat. I mean, of course I was trying to maximize the protein. I was doing protein shakes. We did a lot of egg whites too. At one point, we were just straight up drinking egg whites.
Yeah,
But
that was kind of dumb.
that
But
was so dumb.
you do all kinds of crazy stuff based on what you see when you lack knowledge. So like we just saw Rocky slamming eggs, and but they said that you can't eat raw eggs like that with the yolks, so they got to be egg whites if you're gonna do that. So we were just like, all right, we'll knock back some egg whites.
We just wanted to feel like Rocky and Apollo for a little bit,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, we like the vibes. That's the biggest thing. We're big on the vibes. So
Vibes and ambiance, baby. That's what we
yeah,
were talking about in the last
sometimes
podcast.
it's not the smartest thing, but we always end up learning. So was it one way or the other? But yeah, so your diet, well, you're basically eating, whatever you wanted. You weren't really tracking. You weren't aware of tracking, which is absolutely crazy to me because we go to school, we learn English, we learn science, we learn math, but and I know there's nutrition courses, but nobody's putting a gun to your head and saying you need to take nutrition like they would for a math or a science course, like an astronomy course or a mathematics course. You're forced to take these classes. Everybody takes these classes, but they don't teach you, for the most part, how we should be eating. And I think that is the root cause of so many issues in this country right now with the obesity epidemic. People have heart disease more than ever now. We're talking diabetes. There's all kinds of issues that are out there that are so preventable. And maybe it's because we just didn't learn about it in school. What do you think, Pete? What are your thoughts on it?
Uh, yeah, I could definitely agree with that because they don't tell us any of that stuff. I mean, I have somebody that I know of that works in a plant, and they're working on like Doritos and stuff, like making Doritos, and they're sitting there and they're spraying it with like all this stuff, and they're wearing like all these this crazy like hazmat masks and stuff, and then they're going out and giving it to the public, and we're eating it, you know. So
You know what's crazy? Because I mentioned in the last episode that I work construction. So part of what I do is I need to make demo cuts with the saw, and I need to wear a respirator for that because there's carcinogenic chemicals in there.
right, and
It's cause cancer.
that's what they're doing at these plants for the food that they're giving to
So
us
I might as well take the sawdust that I'm using, bottle it
and
up,
eat
and just
it.
dust it, throw it on top of the Doritos and package it up. So here you go.
I don't know if I would suggest doing that, but yeah, that's pretty much what's happening. I mean,
That's so
it's
crazy,
crazy, and
man.
they don't tell you about any of this stuff. They don't give you any, like you said, they don't give you any nutrition facts on anything. They just they teach you math, English, history, and which again is good stuff to learn. But obviously, if you're going more towards where you want to learn about diet too, they don't teach you anything about what you should eat. You just go home and your parents feed you, and that's what you're getting. So whatever they're eating and what they're buying is what you're eating.
We're almost taught in school like everything that we don't like, I don't use anything when I went to school. I'm not using a single thing. Like I couldn't tell you a single thing I learned in trig, right? I just don't remember any of it. But you remember you remember things like how to tie your shoelace, which they taught you. The things that are necessary, you remember. So we were taught so much stuff that was just so unnecessary. Like why couldn't they add in stuff on nutrition. I mean, your health is the number one important thing. If you don't know how to calculate your macros or even understand it, like there's going to be people listening to this podcast, I bet you, who just have absolutely no idea how they should even go about calculating their macros, and that's so sad to me and so crazy that we're focused on so many different issues besides our own health, and that's like the biggest epidemic of them all is how unhealthy people are. It's terrible.
I,
So
I mean, we had health class, but what did you really learn in health class? Like about fruits and vegetables. It's really about it. I mean, what else
even
did
the
you
health,
learn?
there's nothing super specific, and
There's nothing. Yeah.
even health class was looked at as a joke. Like I don't know. We put such an emphasis on mathematics and English. I'm not saying that those aren't important, but we didn't learn anything about nutrition unless you're studying to be a nutritionist, you know?
Well, yeah, yeah. I don't know how it worked for you, but for me, health class was once you only did it for one marking period. So you would have gym, all 4 marks. So there'd be 4 marking periods, and you'd have gym, and then for one of those marking periods, your gym class would switch to health. It was for like a month, not even. So
Yeah, it's not enough time. You gotta.
it's not enough that they gave to us.
I mean, it's crazy. But so we're here to teach you how, give you an idea, I guess, of how you should be eating. Now, mind you, Peter and I are not nutritionists or dietitians, but you can go on my Instagram. I think I look pretty good. I have high energy levels and I got six pack abs. So I think I know a thing or two about what I'm talking about. And I've also helped Peter out with his diet as well. And Pete's also went from being a little pudgy to starting to lean out a lot, and he's been eating more consistent and more balanced meals, and that's been the biggest thing for Pete. And also what he was putting in his body, just switching some of the foods around that he was putting in his body. Now, there are a lot of foods now that I would consider bad, but it's I'm not necessarily worried about how bad a food is. I'm more worried about the quantity and how much we're consuming of a certain thing, because too much of anything, we established in the last podcast,
Yep.
is bad, and that goes back to the balance. So the key is, that's why we made that podcast, because that is the first podcast that's going to establish like everything that we talk about from here on out in all the episodes. So the biggest thing is establishing a well balanced, ideally whole foods diet. Now, what that's going to consist of is meat products that aren't being injected with hormones. I mean, that just hearing that doesn't sound good. Your meat is being injected with hormones and additives and antibiotics to get them to grow faster. So they're being injected with chemicals, and then we're ingesting it. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to hear that that doesn't sound healthy. And I think a lot of people are just unaware of it. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream now. Like, I feel like a lot of people are being made aware that this is an issue. But there's also a lot of people who just aren't aware or don't care. And the bottom line is, it does make a difference in how you feel. And it could also be preventative for things like cancer in the future, which we all want to obviously avoid. So the meat is the first thing. The next thing I want to touch on is the fruits and vegetables. We know that leafy greens, they're sprayed down. It's obvious. And the fruits as well, they're also sprayed down. Now you can go organic, but they are still using pesticides to some degree. So, I mean, I guess there's no real way to get around it. If you're eating organic, they say that they kind of source their pesticides so that it's like they're using more natural stuff to deter the bugs, but you're still going to get some of that stuff in there no matter what, unless you're going to garden, which I do. I have a garden in my backyard. I had arugula back there. I had lettuce back there. I have tomatoes, peppers, onions, potatoes. I had a bunch of stuff in the yard. And I didn't spray anything. I even had strawberries. Now, the bugs do get to it. You could see the arugula, it's a little bitten. You don't get that in the grocery store. Everything in the grocery store looks perfect. And if it looks perfect, it's almost like it's fake, because I got the tomatoes in my yard and they're just like all deformed looking, but they're perfect in their own way because they came from my backyard. I didn't spray it with anything. Now, granted, the rabbits get in and get to them, but at least I know I'll go in my backyard. I pick from my own tomato plant. It's not sprayed down with all kinds of harmful chemicals, and ideally, that is if it's accessible and if you can do it, having your own garden is probably the most optimal thing that you can do for your health to pretty much 100% avoid that. That's pretty much the only route. Now, the second route is to shop organic and also do your research. You can even go to local farmers markets as well. The biggest thing is do your research. So actually go to the farmers market, ask the farmer what they use on their stuff. Make sure it's like ethically sourced. These are all things that you can be doing if you don't have access to a garden. The biggest thing with the garden is it's also super rewarding. So you do the garden, it's a very rewarding experience, and eating the fruit from your own garden tastes so much better when you know that you're the one who put in the work for it.
You feel
You know?
fulfilled.
Exactly. Yep. You feel like you accomplished something. It's part of the fulfillment, and it's part of my lifestyle. And I just did my garden for the first year this year,
Yeah, I
and
love that, dude.
it was a starter garden. So, but the thing is it uh it was good, but obviously I don't have enough to get me through the winter. And now that I kind of established and seen the way the garden is and what I have to do with each plant, my girlfriend and I, we're gonna make adjustments next year and potentially do a bigger garden so that we can harvest enough to get us through the winter as well. And that's ideally what I want. So because the winter time, I notice I can't get certain things in. Even they're harder to get at the grocery stores. You know what I mean? So I want that. I want that to get me through winter and be able to just save everything from the summer and get me right through the winter for spring for when I have to do the next garden. So that's going to be a big goal of mine for next year is plant enough for that. But that's the fruits and vegetables, and then the meat. Obviously, we touched on. That's another thing. You could get your meat from a local farm. You could also, like I said, do your homework. Look these companies up online. See what they're doing. See how they're handling their products. Um,
Yeah,
and
research is really important. It's like it's a big portion of it is just doing your own research because we could sit here and tell you get this, that, and this, and if you don't do your own research on it, it might not have a good effect on you, which shouldn't happen because we're doing our research as well. But you always want to do your own research to make sure 100% that this is what you want to put in your body. You never want to put anything in your body that you didn't do the research on.
yeah, just because it's in the store on the shelf doesn't mean you should be touching it. There's a lot of stuff out there that you simply shouldn't be touching. I had this article. Let's see if I could pull it up on the. Oh, I had it here somewhere. It was the New York Times article that I was telling you about.
You lost it.
I lost the article. I wish I could pull it up. Maybe there's a way I could like link it after the video, but we can figure that out. But basically, it was the New York Times. It came out in June. They said that companies were being recalled for it was like beverage companies, soda companies. I don't know which one specifically. I didn't finish reading the article, but they're getting recalled for cancer-causing chemicals. Are you looking it up while I'm
Yeah,
talking?
yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Cancer causing chemicals in the sodas that they had. You have it there?
Uh, let's see. Nah, I can't find it.
That's all right. But the point is that I'll find it after and I'll find a way to link it. But
Yeah, we'll link it
um,
down below.
yeah, we'll link it on the YouTube or something. But yeah, it's like it's crazy how these things they get passed by the FDA and then it's like, oh wait, we just did research and this causes cancer. So a rule of thumb, back to Peter and I we're religious, Roman Catholic, and believe in God, Jesus, and all of that. We believe that you should consume what comes from the earth. What God gave us is what we should be putting in our bodies. God never intended us to open up labs to create chemicals for our foods, okay? Like, obviously, we want to preserve our foods, but we want to do it in a way that isn't going to also harm us. So, just like seeing the way that the food is handled and the way that the food is processed, it really makes you question a lot of stuff, you know. And the biggest thing that it made me realize is that I'm only going to consume what God put on this earth. That's it. That if you want to take any, because this is a science, you know, it's crazy how even me, I was so clueless on like what I should be eating, because there was a point where I felt terrible, man. I was like 200 pounds. I was like 198 to be exact. That was when I was competing at the Arnold, and I just did. This was like 2 years ago. I did not feel good. I was low energy. I was high stress. I'm an anxious person as it is. So just being that heavy in body weight and just not eating well at all, and I was basically doing a dirty bulk because I thought I had good genetics. I'm gonna do a dirty bulk. I'll be fine. That was not the case. It threw everything out of whack. I was anxious. I was stressed. I didn't feel good. I didn't look good. Like it
I
was
mean, you
just
look super fucking huge. That's the only thing. But yeah, like you said, it was a dirty bulk, so you still had the little fat on you. You didn't have the the what's the word I'm looking for?
I wasn't
More
lean. Yeah,
yeah,
I
the
wasn't.
lean. You didn't have the lean bulk look. You had more of the unhealthy look.
Exactly. I was starting to get a borderline unhealthy. I went to go get my body fat percentage tested. It was at 19%. Ideally, as an athlete
Damn.
and a healthy individual, you want to be sitting around 13 to 15%. That's ideal. Now keep in mind, too much, because people always take things the wrong way. Okay, so people might be listening to this podcast and saying, "Oh, that means I need to be 2% body fat." Or I shouldn't be consuming any saturated fat, or I should completely avoid sugar. Like that's not what we're saying at all. The what you want to do is sit between a certain percentage. So you don't want to be too low in a body fat percentage, you don't want to be too high in a body fat percentage, because both are going to have impacts on your overall
You want to
health.
be balanced out.
You want to be balanced out with your muscle and your fat. For an athlete and a young man like me and you and I, it should be 13 to 15% body fat for an athlete. And when we're talking optimizing performance and making sure that you're able to perform at a high level, 13 to 15% body fat, and even functioning, you're going to feel so much better sitting in between that body fat percentage, and your training is going to be going well. You're going to notice more consistency. But yes, that comes down to
You're
a
gonna
well
you're gonna
balanced
feel
diet.
better too. You're gonna
You're
feel
going to feel
better.
so much
You're gonna
better.
feel more energized. Like you said, I just started more on the whole foods diet, and even before I started lifting, or well, when I started lifting, I was eating whatever, and then he gave me a diet. It wasn't strict. It was more of just like trying to, get into it. And then once I started getting into that, I started feeling better. Now that I'm getting more strict with myself with the diet, I continuously start to feel better during the day. I start to feel more energized. And obviously that on top of lifting helps you be more energized, helps the blood flow through your body better, because if you're waking up, you're going to work, you're coming home, and then you're sitting and doing nothing the rest of the day, you're killing yourself. And on top of that, you're eating all these chemicals. It's not helping you, and that's why you feel like shit most of the day. And I'm a victim of that too, of feeling like shit, because I was doing the same thing at one point. Coming home, even sometimes drinking. Again, the drinking is another thing that kind of can help you, feel down. That's why you wake up hungover, because your body, your levels aren't good, your levels aren't balanced out, and that's a big thing that we touched on in the last podcast, was balance. And I think that's like really important with absolutely everything, and your health is the most important thing in this world. Above all else is your health.
Yeah, for sure. And so you noticed that you felt better once because you were drinking a little bit, a lot of it actually. You were drinking a decent amount before you started lifting, and you didn't feel good, in your body you didn't look as good either. Then you started lifting, even your facial hair started to come in. I
Yeah,
mean, like you were
I had
starting to.
no beard. I had no beard, dude. I mean, I had one, but it was like super patchy. Now, I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you could see that my beard is actually grown in. It's still a little patchy here, but it's finally grown. It was terrible before this. I think I had like a goatee and a mustache, and that was it. The rest of it
Yeah,
was
it
all
was
just
it was terrible, but
everywhere.
now you look like you look good, and even you should post some of your progress pictures on Instagram too, because you do from when you first started lifting, and also lifting's a journey, so there's levels to it. You could start eating healthy, you're gonna look good, but it really takes a while to reach your full potential when it comes to leanness and muscle density and all of that. It just takes time because everything great takes time. But you're on track, and the biggest thing is that you look better already. So you
Thank
could
you.
see the progress, and you could see that as long as you keep making little tweaks to your diet, and just if as long as you keep going, consistent training, consistent sleep habits, because the sleep and the diet go hand in hand. If you're eating super well but your sleep is terrible, something's going to get thrown off. So that goes back to our last episode when we're talking about the balance. You need to be able to balance your sleep, your nutrition, and your relaxation, your time at work. All of it's a balance. So but now we're talking specifically about the diet, and in itself, the diet also has to be balanced. So if you're eating, so we know carbohydrates is our energy source. So
Well, go through what you eat during the day and why you eat it. So
well,
start with like your breakfast and then go down because you have a really his diet is phenomenal. Go through
well,
that.
the breakfast. I'm not. I don't want to go through my whole diet because that's a lot. But
Yeah, just go through what you eat during the day and a couple of this and that of why you eat those certain
I'm gonna
things.
give you. I'm gonna. How about this? Because I don't want to sit here for 10 minutes rambling off a bunch of food, right? Because it's just gonna keep. I'm gonna be. Oh yeah, and then this. Oh yeah, and then this. I'm gonna give you like my top five
There you go. Okay.
best foods. So I'm
And
gonna
why
go
you eat
with.
them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with potatoes because it's an energy source, and
The
and there's a lot.
carbohydrates that you were just talking about.
Yes, the carbohydrates. Okay, so you eat that around like noon, right? If I have a big training session at 3 o'clock, that's perfect. It takes a couple hours to digest. I get some fiber in me as well, so I'll do some greens. I make sure that I get a little bit of asparagus, and I love asparagus. It makes your pee stink, but I love it. So I'll get it balances the meals off. So another thing that I did take a nutrition course, and one thing I did take away from this course is make sure that you have color in your meals. And that was one thing that I wasn't doing. I was eating a lot of just like I feel every single time I looked at my plate, it was just white rice, chicken, and that's like your standard typical gym bro meal, chicken and rice. Like, where's the fiber? Where's you know what I mean? So where's the fat? Like you're just eating a lean chicken breast. There's no fat. You're not getting any nutrients in you. So I would say we got eggs, we got potatoes. I love eggs because they say that it's bad for your cholesterol. But then that goes back to the balance. I'm not eating 50 eggs a day, you know?
Right.
I'm only eating 25.
Well, they also say
No, I'm just kidding.
they also say with the eggs that it's good cholesterol. So they don't know. I think they just don't know because I've heard it's
No,
good
no, it is
cholesterol, it's
good.
bad cholesterol. But like you said, you can't eat 50 of them. You only eat 25. You know.
Yeah, but it's also like, you got to measure your food, man. Like
Yeah.
you can't just have
I
eggs
mean,
and then cheese and then avocado in one sitting. I mean,
how
that's
many
too much
how many
fat.
eggs you eat a day?
I only eat like five, 4 or 5,
Okay. Yeah.
in the
I eat
morning.
like
That's it.
I eat like 3 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I
Nothing
mean, people
crazy.
go overboard with it. You want to diversify the food. I'm big on diversification. Even with my training, like I could do I could do 10 sets of dips, but I'd rather do two heavy sets of dips, then a set of something else, tricep related, then a set of something else. Instead, I like to that's just my biggest thing. I love diversifying stuff, and I think that's important. You could relate that to everything.
Yep.
The diversification is huge, and the diet especially. You need to make sure that you're having a well-rounded, diverse diet that's consistent of lots of colors. Make sure you're getting adequate fiber in, not too much fiber, not too little fiber. Again, I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not going to give you exact numbers, but I do know like the basic science. And but I keep getting off track. I got to get through so what do I have so far? Eggs and potatoes, right?
Yeah. You said eggs, potatoes. You said the asparagus for the greens.
Yeah, but I'm not going to count that. That's a vegetable. Nobody's going to put vegetables on their top five. This is
Oh,
also like I
as
don't
the
know. This
top,
is
yeah,
also
top five.
yeah, top five. Like if I'm going before a workout, I'm not dogging asparagus.
I mean, did you say you said meats earlier? Steaks,
Yes, so
salmons.
red meat and salmon all grouped together. I love red meat. I love salmon. There's a lot of vitamins in those two food groups because they have fat content. So you have fat content, it's gonna be more nutrient dense. All right, people like to run away from, oh, I can't have steak, it's too fatty. Yeah, well then it goes back to what I just said. Well, how much steak are you having? Are you having a whole piece where it's like a whole pound? Like that might not be good. But if you're having a serving size, which is 6 ounces at dinner, that's going to be perfect for you.
Yeah, that's what I normally do. Five to
Yeah,
six.
that's sustainable. But if you're having 10 ounces, 10 to 16 ounces of steak a night on top of whatever else you're eating, and then if you're drinking on top of it, like how's that any good? So the steak is huge, and the salmon's also huge. And make sure that the salmon as well, if it's farm raised, you don't know what they're doing to the salmon that's being farm raised. So I like to get my stuff wild caught. Now, it's a double-edged sword because then they're also saying, "Oh yeah, the ocean's also polluted, this and that." I think I would rather just get it natural than to have somebody or like a corporation injecting the fish. And it doesn't even look right. You could look at the, like I said before, you could look at this food. It don't even look right. Like you go into the grocery store, the fruit is almost so perfect. The like you could it's so shiny. It just doesn't look real. The fish. Examine what a wild caught sockeye salmon looks like versus a farm raised salmon. The sockeye just looks and tastes so much more like natural. I can't even explain it. You just have to check for yourself. I mean, you could tell the difference. It's like a bright red color, and then it just looks like a perfect pink color on the regular farm raised salmon. And it's just, I know they're two different types, but it's crazy to me. Honestly, it's crazy. So that's number three. We got salmon and steak. I'll group those together because it's considered a
It's
protein
same thing,
and a
yeah.
fat because there's pretty good amount of fat in those foods as well. The next thing I'm gonna go with the fruit because I haven't really listed a fruit. The blueberries. I love blueberries. They're antioxidants. They're great for your digestive system. Blueberries are awesome. I love them. And then let's see, what do I have? One more to list. What do you think, Pete? What do you think for a fifth?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a big orange guy. I really like my vitamin C.
You like oranges?
I love my oranges. Yeah, oranges and strawberries. But I guess you could group the strawberries in with the blueberries. It's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say I'm a big orange guy. I've been eating a lot of oranges lately. It's so good. I have like once, I have one every day, almost in the morning. I'll have it with my eggs. So yeah, I would say either orange or yeah,
But now we got
that's
fruit
what
in
I would
there.
think.
So
Yeah,
you
we
got
have the
it.
fruit.
So you need the carbs, your fruit.
Because everything you said is kind of my top five too. I like the steak. I like the
Oh, I
salmon.
forgot sourdough. I forgot
I just had.
sourdough.
Oh yeah, the sourdough bread. Yes.
Sourdough's good, but this is the thing. So this is all becoming mainstream stuff. Everybody's like hopping on the sourdough wave, even making their own sourdough, which is awesome, by the way. I've never done it, but I want to do it.
I'm gonna have to
The
try that.
biggest thing is that we go to get sourdough, and even that is not real sourdough. So people hear, oh, I got to eat sourdough. They go to the store, they get sourdough. Look at the ingredients. You need to look at the ingredients on everything that you are consuming. Just because you have sourdough doesn't mean that there's not chemicals in there. Doesn't mean it wasn't like ultra processed. You need to look to see. I get sourdough from a local butcher shop, and they don't make it themselves. They get it from another company that makes sourdough. But the ingredients, there's only two ingredients on the back of the sourdough, and that's what you want. You don't want all kinds of stuff. You don't want like a whole paragraph worth of ingredients on the back of your food labels. It's just not what you want. And I know that some people might disagree with this, but I for a fact know that my hormones and the way I feel and the way I look and the leanness, it's like almost night and day difference from how I eat now to how I ate before. It's a night and day difference. Okay. So the biggest thing is we want to have healthy eating habits and we want to try to avoid chronic disease. That's one of the main reasons outside from performance perspective, because both of us are powerlifters. Obviously, we want the diet to optimize performance, but we also want the diet to make sure that we are living as human beings should be living the way God intended it. So we're not eating in excess of anything. We understand that our carbohydrates, healthy carbs, which is not like cake and candy, those are bad carbs. That's high in sugar. We not that you can't have cake, but
Not every
my thing is
day.
this, man.
Gotta-
We are human beings, okay? I like my cake. I like ice cream. But there is a time and place for that. Okay? So if
Yep.
you could say, I'm gonna have a dessert on Saturday, I know there's gonna be stuff in it, But realistically, if you have a cake on a Saturday, Pete, what is that going to do for you in the long run? What's one cake going to do?
It
What's even smoking one cigar like every
Nothing.
once in a while gonna? It's not going to do anything.
It's like you said. It's the balance of everything. You know,
It's
you
the
need to.
balance. Yeah,
Sometimes you
it's
have
the
to treat
balance.
yourself to a sweet. You know, you like I do the same thing once in a while on a Saturday. I'll see a cookie and I'm like I'm hanging out with the family and I'm like I'm taking that cookie. I want one cookie. You know,
Yeah,
so you
and there's
can't
not.
have six of them though or seven of them.
There's
So
nothing wrong with that. There's literally nothing wrong with that. I have a huge problem with impulsiveness though. So if I see if for me, I need to have it planned because if I don't have it planned in my head, and now this everybody's different. I'm just saying how I am. I mean, if you see like you said, Pete, you saw a cookie, you wanted it, you had it, whatever. But my thing is I hate making impulsive decisions, whether it's diet or anything else in my life, work related. I hate the impulsiveness because that always gets you into trouble. When you just don't have time to think about the decision that you're about to make and you just go in,
yeah, you
there's
have to
some
plan everything out.
consequences.
Yeah,
For me,
you
I'm
like to plan.
OCD. I like planning stuff out. So if I'm having dessert, it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna have a treat because I feel. I mean, you can. I'm not saying you can't do that. All right, you can do that. But for me personally, what I like to do, and maybe this might help somebody who's also struggling with impulsiveness, where they see that cookie and they're having it multiple times a week. For me, I say, I'm gonna have a cookie as long as I complete my full work week. I'm going to get all my training in, make sure that my diet is razor sharp during the week, and then on Saturday, you bet your ass I'm having that cookie. And that's how I do
I
it.
agree. I could
How-
agree with that
Because I
100%.
know how I am, Pete. If I didn't do it
No,
like
I
that,
agree with
I'm
that.
having a cookie whenever I want it. And that stuff adds up, and that's the issue.
Yep.
It adds up. So you need to be aware of your behavior. That a lot of this comes down to not the food, but your behavior towards the food. So you can't have a bad relationship with food, all right? Obviously there's some foods that we put in here just to make you aware of, like eat at your own risk. For me, my personal views, your personal views, we like to eat from the earth. That's how God intended it. We're religious people, and that's what we do, all right? I'm not putting a gun to somebody's head and saying, yo, you got to do this. That's your decision. But for me, that's how I eat. Now, like I said, you got to enjoy yourself, like we just talked about. You got to have a cake. You got to have an ice cream. It's not going to kill you. It's not the end of the world. A couple times a month, whatever. It's not everybody. Everybody has their vice. Everybody has their vice, but you got to learn how to control those urges because those urges could get you into trouble. Those urges could cause diabetes if it's not controlled. Those
Yep.
urges could cause obesity. Those urges could cause heart disease. So just saying, oh yeah, have one more cookie, and you're doing it all the time, no bueno. That's no good.
Not gonna live a very long life, I would say.
Well, some people do live a
Some
long
people,
life, but what's your quality of life then, Pete?
right.
What's your quality of life?
Well, because you have people that freaking smoke cigarettes like a chimney and they have no issues. So it's kind of like I
Eventually, it
guess
catches up to you. My grandfather
yeah,
died of
I don't
lung
know.
cancer. I know people who have that COPD and they can't even breathe. It catches up to you. You're not, but you
Eventually,
might not
yes.
get lung cancer. You might not get mouth cancer, but you're gonna pay one way or the other. And if you're not paying with the COPD or lung issues, you're gonna pay with the heart disease or so. You're paying
Yep.
with something. There's always an expense
They
to
always
whatever you
get
do
you.
in excess. Remember this: whatever you do in excess, there is always an expense. So that's the biggest thing. But we also want to make you aware of what companies put on labels. Like organic is a hot thing now. So everybody who's going out there just buying organic. They said we want organic. We know that it's good for you. That doesn't just because it has an organic label stamped on it doesn't mean that that is the stamp of approval and that's what you should be eating. There's plenty of stuff out there that have organic and I turn it around and read the ingredients and I see all kinds of additives in it. And it's just like I don't want that. I don't want all the added stuff. It says organic and then you turn it around and it's still ultra processed.
It's got like the sodium benzoate and
It's
all
got
that
all
other
kinds of
crap in
stuff.
there.
It's got all kinds of preservatives in it. You want to avoid it. So just because it's organic doesn't mean that it's good for you. All right. Just because it says organic doesn't mean it's a healthy alternative to whatever you're trying to, like they have organic cereals. That doesn't mean that there's not chemicals in it.
Right.
You
I
know,
want to I want
so
to touch on that real quick. They actually
go ahead.
have apps now. There's a bunch of them, and you could scan the barcode, and it actually tells you the. I mean, I wouldn't say it's 99% accurate, but it's pretty good from what I've used. Obviously, you want to read the label yourself, but you use this app, you scan the barcode, and it tells you what additives are in there and what's good in the product for you. And I've been using that on top of reading what I have to read, and I balance it out with that, and I'm like, okay, well the app says this, but it doesn't have that in there, or vice versa. The app actually that I use is Yuka, Yuka. I personally like it. There's different ones out there. There's a whole bunch of different ones.
Now, Pete, I'm glad that you mentioned that because you, as like a still considered a
I'm still
novice
learning.
lifter, you're still learning, and you were in the position that I was in because I didn't know this stuff either. And I was like, and I didn't have an app or anything. I didn't even know that maybe the app didn't exist when I first started getting into my diet. But that's a good point for somebody who's listening to this, who's a beginner. First of all, you could always ask Pete or me or Pete. You know, you could always reach out to
On
us,
the
ask us on
Instagram
Instagram or
DMs.
whatever. But yeah, I mean, for somebody who's in your position, they might not know, right? Like, where? How do I know
Yeah, like what
this
are they
isn't?
looking for?
What? Yeah, how do I know that this isn't good for me? And you got to do your research. That's the biggest thing. We can make you aware of
Definitely.
it, but you have to research what you're putting in your body. And it's crazy because so many foods are getting recalled, and and they're just getting recalled because
The
the stuff
chemicals
that's
and
in it,
stuff
the
that they're
chemicals
putting
in
in
it,
it. Yeah.
it's carcinogenic. It causes cancer. So you got to be very careful. And fast food is a big no-no for me. I do not consume fast food at all. And I don't I just that's the biggest thing for me is I can't I'm never you're never going to see me at McDonald's or Burger King. I mean, you hear horror stories about those places anyway, but that's the fast food. If I'm going to do a cheat meal, it's not going to be fast food. I mean, anybody could do their own thing, but for me, if I'm gonna have a cheat meal, I don't know what would be your ideal cheat meal.
Well, all right. So I actually have a funny story about fast food before I got into like really into the strict diet. So I'm coming home from work one day, and for some reason I was really craving McDonald's. So I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna get McDonald's." So I get McDonald's. I asked my brother, I'm like, "Yo, you want some McDonald's?" He says like, "Yeah, get me this." So I bring it home. We're sitting there and we're both eating the McDonald's, and he's looking at me, and I look up at him, and we're just like looking. We made eye contact, and we were like, dude, and I looked at him and go, dude, this is not as good as I remember. And he's like, bro, right? He's like, this is fucking terrible. I go, I 100% regret getting this. Like, I just, after that, I have not touched fast food at all. Like, I just don't, it doesn't appeal to me anymore.
So that's so crazy that you mentioned that because I saw it somewhere that I might have seen it online, but or somebody might have sent it to me. It was an article listing all of the ingredients inside a Chick-fil-A. What is their main thing called?
The chicken sandwich,
The
probably.
chicken sandwich,
Yeah.
bro. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. For anybody listening, hey, you could. I'm gonna look this up actually right
Well,
after
they,
we're
they
done.
say it's the healthiest fast food. That's what they say. But,
There's over 50 ingredients in a
yeah, that's
a
crazy.
sandwich that is this big.
Yeah,
There
that's
is
crazy.
50 ingredients in it. How can you fit 50 ingredients into a chicken sandwich?
What do you put on your steak? Salt, pepper, and a little bit of
Bro,
fucking,
I
a
put
little bit of
salt,
like barbecue seasoning or something. Nothing crazy.
pepper. I can't even fit 50 things on my steak.
Shit.
Like, how? I just don't understand. It's
A
so
little bit of
crazy to
smoke
me.
seasoning to get it taste a little smoky.
Oh
That's it.
my God. Like, just be. And I don't know. Like, I might get the itch on like a big occasion where it's like I want my cheat meal to be Chick-fil-A and I might go for it. But man, as like a even a once a month thing, like no way. That might be like a once every 5 years for me. Like I'm not getting Chick-fil-A. That's just a no, and everybody's different, but that's just a no-no for me. And the oil that they use, the
Oh yeah,
oil
no
that they
good.
use, dude, you can't even put the oil down the drain. They have separate places where you got to go to expose the oil. And you can't put it down the drain because it stiffens up. What do you think that stuff's doing in your gut? You
Yeah,
think
well
it's
that's another thing actually we forgot to touch on was olive oil. You want to use olive oil to
I
cook
use olive oil for everything.
everything.
I don't
No
use anything.
vegetable, no
No,
canola,
I don't use seed
none of that.
oils. I don't use seed oils.
Not good for you.
If I want a peanut. I'm gonna go eat a peanut. I'm gonna go eat a pistachio. I'm not having peanut oil. They processed it, and I mean, very little of that stuff, very little could be okay. The issue is that these restaurants, they don't
They're deep frying it.
they don't cook with very little.
Yeah, they're
There
deep
is no
frying it.
very little. It's always in excess. Restaurants, that's the issue with American restaurants. I went to Italy. We did not eat like that. I was so confused at the way we were eating because in Italy, they do not eat the way that we eat here in America. And it's become so normalized, nobody questions it. And I question I'm very skeptical. I question everything. You could give me the truth right in front of my face, and I will still question it because that's just how I am. I question everything. I don't
That's how
listen
it should be.
just because somebody is in a position of a professional, or somebody is in a position of power, doesn't mean you can't question them. Doesn't mean that you know less. Like, yes, they might have more experiences than you in that particular field, but I'm always questioning the science of things. I want to see the proof. I really want to see the broken down proof that putting this in your body doesn't cause cancer. Because all the case studies say that all this stuff that if you consume on a regular basis causes these diseases. And the proof is in the pudding. Look how many people are in the country are sick and unwell.
And
And
obese. Obesity is a
and
big thing in this country. I mean,
it's terrible. But also look at men's health, because we want to structure this podcast towards men's health. Look at the amount of men our age with suboptimal testosterone levels. Back in the day when our grandfathers were going to war, their testosterone was through the roof. Now we got like nobody's training. Nobody. If you want to sit around, you could sit around. You could sit on TikTok all day, scroll.
you don't need to leave the house. You don't need to
You
leave the
need
house.
to leave the house.
And if you do leave the house now, everything's super expensive, so that don't help either. But
No, it's terrible. Everything. It's so bad. And then you go outside, everybody's socially awkward because we live through the phone. I know we're getting off topic, but because this is nutrition and supplements, but it all goes hand in hand. It has to do with your health. I mean, everything in excess is bad. So, yes, we try to make you aware of, and you could always reach out to us for more advice. I mean, this is years and years of just trial and error with my own body, and then Pete also. I mean, look at Pete's bicep over there. It's,
does it look good?
it didn't look like that 2 years ago.
No, it did not. It
No.
was fucking skinny up here. But
So yeah, I mean, it's very important, the diet, and like I said, you could always reach out to us for more in-depth information. I created that sheet, Pete,
yes,
that
yes.
little guide, and
A
I have
holistic living guide.
yeah. So that goes back to what you wanted me to do earlier. If you really do want to see if you do really want to see my diet broken down on a daily basis, and also a shopping list, I do have that broken down into a guide, and I'm making that free. So if you want it, you can honestly just hit me up on Instagram, send me your email, say, hey, I'm interested in seeing your diet. I will send you the whole entire thing. It also has like different soaps that I use that are organic, and shampoos and stuff like that. So, and also shaving stuff if you shave.
What's your Instagram for everybody to everybody to know?
So it's the Quad Father 82 and a half kg. So it's 82.5 kg, and
Mine's the
you're gonna
same thing, but it's got
you're
an
gonna get us
underscore
confused.
after.
Honestly, just
Mine has an underscore after. Either
ask,
one.
ask either one of us for the ebook, and Pete's gonna have access to it
I
as
I
well,
have
so
it as well. Yes,
so
and
he can send it.
the last thing I want to touch on this topic that we were talking about is find somebody that will help you. So like I have him, he has me, and we go back and forth and we talk to each other about things. If I'm doing something wrong, he'll tell me. If he's doing something wrong, I'll tell him. So we have a system set up to help each other out because it's really hard doing stuff by yourself. So try and find somebody, a brother, a sister, your mom, your dad, a cousin, anybody to help you with these things, and you guys could help each other. And that's kind of what we do with everything, lifting, eating, all that
You
stuff.
need a mentor. You need somebody who's been through it, and you need somebody to teach you the way.
Not even a
Yeah.
mentor, somebody to learn with too, you know?
Yeah, so
Even
a
somebody to
friend.
learn
You need a
with
friend. You need a
because
friend,
you have
a
an extra
mentor.
brain.
Exactly. It's good to bounce ideas and keep an open and be able to keep an open mind. It always goes back to John Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. You got to keep an open mind, right?
Yeah,
So
your defense stinks.
that was Kickboxer, but yeah,
That was the kickboxing movie.
we
I'm
love
getting
80s
confused.
we love 80s
Uh,
movies. 80s fighting movies are so good, unmatched.
uh,
But yeah, so that's the biggest thing with the diet, and I think we pretty much touched on
oh,
everything.
my cheat meal. My cheat meal, probably a milkshake.
Now you think of it.
Probably, I was like, because you asked me the question, and then I told the story about the fast food, and then I forgot what the question was, and now I just remembered it. Yeah, probably a milkshake, or even, and I guess this can count as, I don't know. I'll go to Smoothie King and I'll get a smoothie. I don't think that counts as a cheat meal though,
I'm not
because
gonna lie to you.
I love Smoothie King.
I love going to the drive-ins for a milkshake, just a plain
Yeah,
vanilla milkshake. But
nothing
it has
crazy.
to be the drive-ins, and you know why. I like the vibes. I like the ambiance. You go to the drive, dude. The drive-ins that's over by me, it's like old school drive-ins. Like you go
Yeah,
over there, and it's this old school music and like old school '50s diner music. It's awesome. So I get into it, man. I go over there. I'm like,
yeah, I love that.
extra large milkshake.
The
That's my cheat.
ambiance, baby.
Yeah, I love the ambiance. That's my cheat meal though. I love the milkshake.
Speaking of ambiance, we got Halloween coming up next month, and then after that, the Winter Arc,
Exactly.
which
We're
we're
gonna
probably gonna talk and touch on a little, maybe in the next podcast or the week after that, 100%.
Yeah, we see that's trending on social media, this winter arc. So we're gonna have to do more research on what exactly that entails, and we're gonna have to talk about maybe we'll talk about how we plan on doing our winter arc this year and
I mean,
all the
the Winter Arc feels like super different when you lift, because I feel like I never had a Winter Arc until I started lifting, and now I did 2 years of a Winter Arc, and I'm hyped for the
it was
third.
this gaming arc. You
Yeah, it
just
was
sit in the dungeon, lack of vitamin D, and just sit there and game all day.
pretty much. Now they got the Winter Arc. Go to the gym with the hood up, feel a little bit like an assassin from Assassin's Creed or something, or Anakin
Exactly.
from Star
The
Wars.
ambiance. It's all about the ambiance.
All about the ambiance and the way you feel about it.
So yeah, we'll touch on that maybe the next episode. But I want to end with one more thing about the diet, and it's about building habits. So it's not the food that's the issue, it's the habits that are the issue. That's the root cause. So a lot of we see
Definitely.
these weight loss pills being pushed, Ozempic and all kinds of and I don't know, I haven't done any research. I don't even want to do the research. I don't know what kind of long-term effects
They have the
these
side effects.
pills.
That's the issue.
Yeah,
There's a lot of side effects.
yeah, but I'm not even talking about I'm talking about like long-term
Right.
effects of taking this pill, and it just shows how much of a quick fix society that we are. That, and I get it, you're probably in a difficult position as a doctor because you realize you're dealing with somebody who's most likely not going to change their habits, and that's probably the only alternative that you have is putting them on a weight loss pill. But it's just, here's an issue, or there's an issue, here's a pill to fix it. And I don't agree with that as a first aid. I think that you should always there's always a trade-off to whatever you're doing. So if I'm putting UP on a pill, and let's say that we could have taken a different step before putting you on the pill and making the pill the last resort, I'm going to take the step before I just go, Pete, you got an issue, got put you on a pill. So it's just sad that 9 times out of 10, it comes down to poor habits over an extended period of time that lead to these results. And then at that point, sometimes it's like you're too far gone, and they say the only option is the pill at this point. And that's just sad because nobody told that individual on the consequences that they were going to suffer in 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
Maybe they would have done something different. Maybe they wouldn't have. But it's just not talked about enough, and that's why I wanted to come on here and make a podcast so that we do talk about it. We let people know that it's okay to have a cheat meal. We let people know it's okay to have ice cream in moderation. We do not want to do anything in excess, okay? And obviously, we want to try to avoid the chemicals in foods at all costs because they're just harmful. We see all kinds of big companies getting recalled. So fix your habits, and then the results will follow. That's the biggest thing is
I like that.
fixing your habits because it does it's 9 times out of 10 it's not a diet issue. I mean it is, but the diet issue is a result of your poor habits.
Right.
So fix your habits and everything else will come.
And again, nothing happens overnight. Also, since you touched on pills, what kind of supplements you take? Because I know you
Actually,
don't take a lot.
I know we're running out of time, so I wanted to touch on the supplements
Yeah,
too.
touch on your supplements real quick.
So supplements, that's another big thing in the fitness industry. It's like what's the next
And
what's
people
the
take
hot
way too many supplements, I think,
what's
too.
the hot supplement? And actually want to touch on one of the more popular ones, ashwagandha. It's crazy because I competed at the Arnold uh, back in March, and while I was at the Arnold, I felt like ashwagandha was like this hidden gem that nobody really discussed. I was seeing ashwagandha banners all over the venue, all over the place. Everybody is pushing ashwagandha. This is what you need to be taking to take your game up to the next level. And it's just so crazy how we get these big athletes to endorse these brands, and everybody all of a sudden thinks, "Oh, Chris Bumstead just endorsed, so and so. We need to take whatever Chris Bumstead's taken because he's jacked." Little do they know that man devoted his whole entire life to his bodybuilding career, the diet, the supplements, which he's not natural by the way. So like he's obviously I don't know exactly what he's taking, so I'm not gonna just say something. I don't know what he's taking, but I do know that he is supplementing, with stuff that the average human being will not be supplementing with, and he's doing it under supervision of a coach or an expert, and he's good at what he does. He is the best bodybuilder out there. So you are not Chris Bumstead, and that is the biggest thing that a lot of people need to get through their heads is you could take if you take the supplements that Chris Bumstead is endorsing does not mean that you're going to look even remotely close to that. So that's the biggest thing is making sure that we're using our brain a little bit. Just because something's pushed mainstream doesn't mean it's what you need. Also, what do you need? That's the biggest thing when establishing supplements. Are you deficient in something? Should you be taking something because you're deficient in it? People just like the idea of taking something because they think, "Oh, it's going to make me turn into a superhuman." Hard work makes you turn into the superhuman that you weren't before. You got to put in the work. You got to make sure your diet is balanced. You got to make sure you're living a healthy lifestyle, that you're not drinking in excess, you're not smoking in excess, you're not doing the things that are going to make you sick and unhealthy. That's what you should be worried about, not what Chris Bumstead's taking. You should be worried about your own life before you're worried about what somebody else is taking and the supplements they're taking. If you're going to supplement with anything, you better give me a very good reason why you're taking that supplement with scientific proof as to why it works.
The research, once again,
The
is what you
research,
gotta
once
do.
again, you can't just say Chris Bumstead's taking this, let me take it. I started taking ashwagandha. It took me probably 6 months before I started supplementing with it. Between the research, looking at the long-term effects, and ashwagandha is all natural, and it comes from the earth. I'm pretty sure it's an Indian herb, and I take ashwagandha root, and you need to take KSM 66. That's what you're supposed to take. I take ashwagandha. I don't. I cycle it though
Yeah,
because they
cycling
say
is
they
very
don't they
important.
don't know. Well, it's cycling for two reasons. One, with ashwagandha, we don't know the long term effects of it that has specifically on the liver. And then also the other thing is your body gets used to it, and I don't want to build up that tolerance for something that is going to help me. Now, how does ashwagandha work? Ashwagandha is basically stress support, to put it simply. Okay, it helps with your stress and if you have anxiety. So if you don't have stress or anxiety or high cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, and you don't have which I had chronically high cortisol. If you don't have these issues going on in your body, why are you taking it? Because they say it's going to make you stronger. That's not true. The diet is what makes you stronger. You taking ashwagandha isn't going to, because I could take, there's plenty of people who take steroids and they can't get stronger.
They were
It
saying
comes,
ashwagandha makes you stronger.
yeah, the research shows,
Really?
but that could be true.
I didn't
But
even know that.
the research is always going to be skewed because you don't know is in the studies, right? is everybody eating exactly the same and supplementing, or are people eating, because how do they know that the diet and just the time, because over time you're just going to get stronger no matter what, how do
Right.
they know that that's not being influenced rather than the ashwagandha itself? Like how are they isolating ashwagandha and saying ashwagandha is the reason you're getting stronger, but really it could be just you getting
It could just be
stronger
you
and the
getting
diet.
right. Yeah, because for
Yeah.
me, the ashwagandha helped. But at one point, it felt like my emotions were almost numb. So, like you said, that's why it's good to cycle certain things because you don't wanna overdo it, and you again want to balance it out. So, I would say, yeah, ashwagandha is good to take, but you want to cycle it. So, I take it maybe for 1 or 2 months, and then I stop for like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
The ashwagandha is good. I like beet juice for oxygen, heart, and blood flow. That's really good. And
It gives
creatine,
you a pump. It gives you a pump in
get
the
nice
blood.
pump.
Yeah.
Creatine is everybody almost everybody takes creatine. Again, it depends on which creatine you take, but that again you want to cycle. I cycle like I'm cycled off of creatine right now. I haven't taken it for like 2 months. I normally cycle the creatine back on before I start to compete. Once I get into a meet prep, because psychologically it makes me think I'm getting stronger, and so mentally, I either I'm tricking myself or it actually works
That's the
type of thing.
psychological component too,
So
dude. It's huge. If you think something's working, that's the placebo.
right, it's got
You
the
know?
placebo effect, which most likely 9 times out of 10 it's probably a little bit of both, but most likely it's the substance working. And also, again, like we said, steak has natural creatine in it as well, so that's also good if you're doing creatine and steak. You have the nat.
Did you touch on the magnesium, Pete?
I actually haven't done magnesium in a while. I think you've done the magnesium more
Yeah,
than me lately, but
we
we were
were
talking
talking
about it
about
a little bit.
magnesium. I actually talked to a good friend of mine who's a dietitian, and I hope that he listens to this podcast so we have something to talk about. We might even have to do a
Yeah,
part two to this
I
and have
mean,
him
might need
on
them
here.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because he told me that he had some opinions on these topics, so I would love to have him on and chat about this. Um, but yeah, the magnesium's great, and actually, Mike was the dietitian is the one who I talked to about magnesium, and he looked at my diet and was like, "Yeah, you're most likely deficient in that, so you should probably supplement with it." But if you aren't deficient in something, there's really no point in supplementing with it. Like if you're for me, I get a lot of vitamin D. I'm always out in the sun. I'm working in the sun. Like I'm not going to supplement with something. I'm not vitamin D deficient, so why would I
Right.
supplement with that? And magnesium, I am. I was deficient in magnesium, and Mike saw that after he evaluated my diet, and I I started supplementing with it, and I feel a lot better with magnesium. Like I could tell the difference, and yeah, it just basically it helps. It has a calmness effect. I like taking it closer to bed. It helps me sleep at night, and that's something that you don't really need to cycle off of. I'll stay on magnesium if especially if I'm deficient in it. I'm just gonna take it. I mean, it's safe to take it every day. I'd have to double check with Mike. I'm not too sure on that, but yeah, I've been taking it every day, and I've been feeling fine. As long as you stay within the recommended dosage, you're fine. So yeah, the magnesium. You touched on the beetroot. I love beetroot. It also
Uh,
helps heart
Turmeric
health.
as well. Yeah, the heart
Yeah,
health. Yes.
yeah. So if you have like blood pressure, or like for me. So for me, this is a perfect example actually. I had, and this comes from a family with both parents have hypertension. So, yes, I'm most likely going to get it. And it's hereditary, it's genetic. There's really no way of getting around it. I'm eventually going to get it. And I feel like most people do get blood pressure in their lifetime anyway. But my parents got it young. So, my dad had it when he was like my age, right? I'm 25 years old. He had blood pressure, he was on blood pressure medication. And for me, I told him, I was like, Dad, I'm not getting blood pressure. I said, I'm living a healthy lifestyle. I'm managing my cortisol, I'm managing my stress, and I had it was considered stage one hypertension, or maybe even stage two. My blood pressure was when I got it checked, it was like 145, and I was also checking it outside of the doctors. Sometimes they say it's elevated when you go because you're nervous, but I was also checking it at home, and it was still elevated even in a relaxed state. Okay, now I switched my diet to a whole foods diet. I cut a little bit of body fat off. I started to manage my stress and get my cortisol under control, and my blood pressure is all of a sudden normal. I was taking beetroot powder every day. I was taking turmeric for the inflammation, and it helps your immune system as well. It's an immune boost, and I got my blood pressure down. I checked it the other day. I checked it like a couple weeks ago, and it was like 115 over, I want to say 70, I think. And maybe it was a little less. Maybe it was in the 60s. I think it wasn't high though. I remember because I looked it up online. I was looking at the charts and I'm like, wow, I'm in the normal range. And it was just crazy and also super rewarding to see how I potentially would have had to most likely go on blood pressure medication. I saw a problem in me. I'm not a doctor. I saw a problem. I used a little bit of common sense, and I was able to avoid a situation that could have been bad because you get on the blood pressure medication, sometimes you can't get off of it, you know? And that's just how it is. But I took the beetroot powder. I was adding a little bit more cardio into my training because I was super strength specific. And that's another thing that we want to touch on in another podcast is how powerlifting is so one dimensional that when I started implementing a little bit of cardio, that evened my health out. So but that's a topic for another
That's a
time.
whole
Yeah,
nother.
yeah. But I do want to touch on that in future
Yes,
podcasts.
definitely. I agree.
But yeah, the basically the beetroot powder, it saved me, man. Like I was heading towards stage 2 hypertension, and even the doctors were concerned about it, and I was able to get that down to normal levels, just by myself, going on daily walks, making sure that I was structuring my training properly. I wasn't overtraining, managing my cortisol, making sure I was implementing proper rest, avoiding alcohol, avoiding nicotine. I don't do nicotine. Maybe a cigar like in the summertime once a month, so a couple times a year. But it's not a religious thing for me. And yeah, I did the beetroot powder and I got the blood pressure down. So and also I don't know for sure, but I think my testosterone levels were for sure fluctuating because at the time I was 198. I was super tired, lazy, unmotivated. I just felt terrible, and my gym lifts were tanking, and I was heavier in body weight. Usually weight moves weight. In this case, it was not. I couldn't even lift what I was lifting at 180, at 185. So I basically dieted down, eating all organic, making sure that I was getting my meats straight from the butcher shop, and they get everything from the local farms. So I was doing my research. I was getting my produce from the farmers market. If I had to, I'd go to Whole Foods because the farmers market isn't really a thing in the winter over here. We live in upstate. I live in upstate New York. Pete lives in Jersey. It also gets cold there. But yeah, that was the most important thing to reversing the high blood pressure. Also, just like more energy too, like the supplements I'm taking and the
I definitely
diet.
feel better with the beet juice for
Feel so
sure.
much better. I feel so
100%.
much better, and I avoided potential issues. Not to say that I can't get issues. Anybody could get any health problem at any time. I'm not trying to say that I have full control over it, but you want to control what you can control. I mean, obviously genetics is going to play a big part. Like sometimes you can't beat these things. Genetics is going to, like, I'm prepared for it. I'm most likely going to have high blood pressure, but I guarantee you it's not going to be within the next 5 years if I have anything to do with it because I'm taking all the precautions and all the
To
steps
prevent it.
to prevent it. It's all preventative. So that's what we're trying to do. We want to use the diet and we want to make the food taste good. We want
Yeah.
it to be centered around healthy, having a healthy gut, making sure we're not bloated. We need to listen to our body. If we're bloated, we're doing something wrong. If we're feeling sluggish, we're doing something wrong. And 99% of the time, it's coming from what you're eating and also how you're managing your stress. A lot of everything, the stress just kills you. The stress is another thing. It could disrupt so many things in your body, and we're gonna do another podcast on that as well in the future, just managing stress and all that. But I think that's a good place to end, Pete. I mean, we touched on pretty much everything, having a well balanced diet, what's considered BS in the industry of food, and yeah, I think we gave some pretty good tips with trying to go to locals farmers
Yep.
markets and making sure that you're getting your eggs local and all of that. So
And again, if you're not sure about what supplements, we have that also on the document. Just shoot one of us a DM. We could send you over that document with all the food
yeah,
and the diet and the supplements
that's huge.
that
If
we
you're if
take.
you're not doing that, at least if you're at least not looking at that, then you're doing something wrong. I
Right.
advise
I
everybody who's
definitely.
listening to this podcast to reach out to us. And you could also shoot me an email. My email is antone213 at gmail.com. Just shoot me an email and say that you're interested in it, and I will send you the PDF for free. And all I ask is that you give me your honest feedback on what you think about it. And
And yep, and the last thing I want to say is make sure you guys hit that follow button, that subscribe button. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Make sure you share this with somebody who you think would enjoy it as well. If you enjoyed it, if you made it this far, we really appreciate everybody that's listening. And yeah, make sure you share, comment, give us your thoughts. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
all right, guys, thanks for listening.